Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel again. Still having technical internet issues until about Thursday, so I'll be doing videos from my cell phone in the meantime. And today I'm going to be just kind of recanting my history with cell phones or cell phone memories. So obviously as a child, my earliest cell phone memories come from television and movies. Car phones as depicted in movies like Nothing But Trouble, other movies I can't recall off the top of my head, and obviously the ginormous brick that Zach Morris used on Saved by the Bell, the humongous cell phone we all remember from our childhood. And then by the time you get to Clueless, the kids, the rich kids have cell phones. And then Scream, there's a few kids who have cell phones, which I would claim is anachronistic because those were not rich kids, and you would have had to have been rich in 1996 to own a cell phone, especially as a teenager, because there's no way your parents are paying $300 a month for a teenager to have a cell phone when that's probably like a third of their fucking monthly income in 1996. So, my first experience owning a cell phone was 2004. And they were still expensive then. It was, actually, I got it through work. I was working for a pizza restaurant. I'm not going to say which one. And I was a delivery driver. And the franchise owner of the local restaurant I worked at, the local franchise that I worked at, wanted all of their delivery drivers to have cell phones. So he made a deal with the local Sprint store that we could get a discount on our cell phones. And I say discount, it still cost me $115 a month to get that cell phone from Sprint in 2004. And this is at a time when I was making $5.35 an hour. But it did help. It was, like $40 off or something like that. I kept that cell phone for a while until I replaced it. And it was a flip phone, Sprint phone. I don't remember if it was Motorola or who manufactured it. Because it did actually say Sprint on the front of the phone. Now, I don't think it was manufactured by Sprint. I'm not sure if they ever actually made phones. But I can't recall the specifics. I don't have that phone anymore. It met its end when I dropped it one day and backed over it with my car because I hadn't realized I dropped it, and it was too late by the time I saw the pieces of it in my driveway. Nothing to salvage. My next cell phone, I know for a fact, was a Nokia, and it was not a flip phone. It was actually one of those old, like it looked like one of those miniature, like those old cordless phones you used to have back in the day. It looked like a miniature version of that. It was a Nokia something. And I had that one for a few years. Now, what I do remember, and I don't remember all the specifics, but I do remember, one, this was before smartphones, so we didn't have internet on my phones. Now, when I had my Sprint phone, I did have internet. And it had bare minimal web browsing capabilities, but it was like only like, the mobile versions of websites, which most websites didn't have mobile versions back then. So it was very limited in what it could, browsing the internet. It was basically just like, the directory of the web page or whatever. It was just like bullet points, links. It was very shitty. The Nokia phone did not have web capabilities at all. Another thing I remember from the time is text messages were hella expensive. I remember getting 100 text messages per month, and then it was 99 cents a text per text once you used up 100 text messages. So I was constantly screaming at my friends, "Stop fucking texting me." I was like, "Call me, and if you can't call me, then fucking leave me alone." And my asshole friends who had better cell phone plans than I did were always fucking texting me, and I was always blocking their numbers. I was like, Jesus Christ, I said stop fucking texting me. And then I remember getting my first smartphone. This was in 2010, And I remember very specifically, I was in university at the time, and I was able to get a discount for being a college student. I don't remember what I paid for it this time around because, things had fluctuated. And let's just say when I was in college, I wasn't paying attention to what I spent on things because the government was giving me free money and I was just spending it like there was going to be no end. Oops. But, what are you going to do? You give a poor person a blank check, they're going to fucking spend it because what do you expect? Excuse me. So, I do remember vividly, it was an iPhone 3G. That I do remember. And it wasn't 3G, like 3G, 4G, 5G network. It was like 2G network. But it was 3G, that was the model. It was like a third generation. So it was iPhone 3G. Mostly, it was indistinguishable, for the most part, from my iPod Touch, which I had gotten a year prior. Now, I still had and that's a whole other video for another day, but I still had my iPod Classic with video, which I kept around for, ever, because I still have it. But that's another story for another day. But I had an iPod Touch for a brief moment in time, and my iPhone 3G was basically an iPod Touch with cell phone capabilities, is more or less what it was. And I think that's what the first few generations of iPhones were before Apple, I guess, discontinued the iPod family or replaced it with the iPad family. Because the early iPads were just iPods, but they were iPod Touches, but they were just bigger. So again, that's a whole nother, and it's a whole nother story for another day. But yeah, from there, I have mostly had, exclusively had smartphones from that point on. But I've tried different ones. I had a Samsung phone. I've had AT&T. I've had Sprint. I've had T-Mobile. I've had Walmart, whatever the fuck their plan was. I've tried the different carriers. People are going to say this one, that one, whatever. Look, in my experience, they're all the fucking same. They all suck. They've all got their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, they all pretty much suck. But I tried different types of phones, too. That iPhone that I had was the last Apple product I've ever owned and will be the last Apple product I ever own. But the next smartphone I got after the Samsung was a Windows phone. And that was a piece of shit. That was a worthless piece of shit. Because Microsoft did not support the Windows phone very faithfully. The shit didn't sell worth a goddamn. And there were no developers making apps for it, so it really fucking sucked. I had that for about a year, give or take, and then I replaced it with another Android phone. Not a Samsung this time, but I don't remember who it was. And I basically stuck with Android ever since. Excuse me, I'm still fighting this cold. I apologize. And still smoking, obviously. But anyways, that's pretty much it as far as my cell phone memories go. I heard about them or saw them on TV way before I ever got one. I was the first person in my family to get a cell phone. Like I said, my employer paid for it or paid a portion of it so I could get one. And my parents got theirs, which were Nokia phones. I do remember that. A year later, after I got mine, because, I had mine and they were like, oh, we want a cell phone too. And then later, as time went on, pretty much now everybody has cell phones. Even children have cell phones now. But yeah, it was a totally different time in the 80s and 90s. Cell phones were like for the mega rich. And we really didn't even have a concept of what a cell phone was back in the 80s and 90s. It was just like a thing you saw on TV. It might as well have been science fiction.